Call started on Wednesday, October 12, 2022 at 18 hours 47 minutes and 8 seconds.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
Well, I'm down by the Natural Area Preserve, by the just kind of near Clarksdale, kind of outside Trout Lake, and that's the best I can tell you about where I am. There's a little entrance here.
Okay, so what's going on, sir?
I came over with a friend of mine, and she's a great swimmer. And went down to she wanted to go swimming, so we went down to.
Sir, what is going on right now that you've called 911?
She's lost. She's not back.
Okay, so you've got a missing person. Okay.
Yeah, she's been gone. She's been gone for like well over an hour, and it's getting dark here. She's only got her swimsuit. She's barefoot, just like freaking cold in the water.
Take a deep breath for me.
Okay.
And what water was she in?
The Trout Creek, I believe it's called.
Trout Creek? Okay.
Feeds into Trout Lake.
Okay, and you're there at Trout Creek Road? And you said you're down there by Clarksdale?
Yeah, by Clarksdale, just outside Clarksdale.
Yep.
Clarksdale, I think it is, yes.
And is that where she went in at?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually was with her, went down to the creek, and I waited around for like 2 hours for her to show back up again, but she never showed up.
On the afternoon of Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, a 31-year-old woman named Hannah Walker went swimming in a scenic area near Trout Lake, Washington, accompanied by a 67-year-old man named Jeremy. The two were friends, although the exact circumstances of their friendship remains unknown. Regardless, the two went swimming in an area named Trout Lake, not too far away from the vacation home where Jeremy often stayed with his wife. As you just heard, that afternoon the two got separated. Hannah, who had been wearing nothing but a black swimsuit at the time of her disappearance, had gone into the water and did not come back out. Hours later, the older Jeremy called 911 to inform them of Hannah's disappearance, having left her towel and cell phone at the shoreline. Sadly, sometime later, a search effort would find Hannah's remains in the water. She was found nude, with no shoes found at the scene and her swimsuit found on shore, surrounded by boot prints. An autopsy held more than a week later would find DNA under her fingernails and semen in her vaginal canal, but it's not believed that any suspects were asked to provide DNA. You see, the investigation would be overseen by the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office, and their poor resource management made it so the autopsy did not take place until 9 days after Hannah's body was recovered. They claimed to have found alcohol in her bloodstream, which they allege mixed with prescription medication and led to her accidental drowning. Hannah's family alleged that waiting more than a week to conduct the autopsy allowed the alcohol in her body to metastasize, a known phenomenon in decomposition, and that the drugs in her system were consistent with her medication. But that's not all. The family of Hannah Walker has been fighting for answers for the past year, and they've had to operate off of the back foot the entire time. They weren't even informed of Hannah's death until 3 days after her body was found, when they found out due to an errant social media post. In the months since, they've had to fight uphill to get any momentum or answers in her case, and nearly 1 year later, they have more questions than answers. This is the story of Hannah Rose Walker. Just a few weeks ago, I was able to chat with Aya Walker, Hannah's mother. While we would eventually discuss the investigation and her ongoing quest for answers, I would also get to learn more about the details that have not yet made it into the scant coverage of this case online. Namely, details of Hannah herself.
It's really hard for me to talk about Hannah or to think about how special she is as an individual. But I'll tell you that she grew up in Hawaii and was very hard to get out of the ocean. Oftentimes it would become nighttime and I'd be there, paddling out to tell her, no, really, Hannah, we have to come in. So she was just a water girl, learned to swim really young. Like I said, was just always in the ocean, playing really hard in the jungle. She helped me in the garden a lot. She was really interested in herbology as a little girl. And as she grew, she spent some time in Southern Oregon and also up in Portland. She's an animal lover. Like, she could communicate with dogs particularly really well. And she had a really special cat that I'm now caring for.
Okay.
She was really smart. She was the funny one in our family. She would always be the quick one with the inside joke and always made us laugh. She had the infectious laughter. She was pretty sarcastic. Wit. She was studying. She was a CNA, and she really enjoyed caring for the elderly. She helped them with mobility training and whatnot, and then she scored in the top. I think it's like 99.8 percentile on the GED exam when she took it. She read a lot. She painted. She wrote music. Had a lovely voice. Hannah wrestles with a lot of internal demons too. She had eating disorder as a young girl. A lot of confidence issues. She endured a lot of trauma as a child, and I think that translated to some of these problems that she was wrestling with. She was in the process of making significant changes. She was going to come down here. She got accepted to go to the university here. And so that was exciting for everyone to see that she was, making some choices that looked like it was going to help her turn things around.
Mm-hmm.
She and I were at odds often because of choices that she was making and danger that she would, undoubtedly find in situations she would put herself into. But we were very close. We talked daily.
While Hannah had started to build up herself throughout 2022, she still struggled with some long-time issues in her life, namely an ongoing issue with alcohol abuse.
She was lost in alcohol. She often told me that she didn't do other drugs, but I really didn't believe her because her behavior would sometimes be very erratic. She was also in some therapy for mental illness, trying to get some help for deep issues. So it's confusing. Like, I actually thought that I would find out that it was something like fentanyl or, some bad drug. But that wasn't the case. When the toxicology report came back, it showed only normal levels of her regular prescribed medicine. So that was a little bit of a shock to me because she did tell me that she was only drinking and really trying to stop that as well. So regretfully, I wished I really would have believed her. At any rate, she was going through quite a bit, and she was, involved with a boy that I didn't like. Once he was abusive to her, I blocked him immediately.
Hannah had been planning on relocating to the American Southwest, where she had already been accepted into a university. However, before she did so, she planned to finish up some unfinished business in the Portland area, namely a long-time relationship. Hannah had been in an on-again, off-again relationship with a man we'll call Ricky, whom had not been great to her. The two had been involved in many domestic disturbances, with Ricky alleged to have been abusive towards Hannah. This ultimately culminated in an incident in October of 2022, just days before Hannah's eventual death. On Friday, October 7th, members of the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office responded to another domestic disturbance, and Ricky was detained under potential charges of menacing and strangulation. He was ultimately released from jail without being officially charged on October 10th.
Yeah, so Hannah was here, got accepted to the university, and then I'll never forget, she was like, Mom, I'm going to go up to Oregon. I'm going to road trip with some friends and go to the beach before I start school. And I was furious about that. I said, no, you really ought to just get settled, get ready for school, take care of yourself, get some work going. But she said, no, it's a last hurrah, before I get serious, whatever, I'm going to go do it. And I hugged her twice, I made her get out of the car and embarrassed her friends that she was with. And I'm really glad that I did that. But anyway, she left, and then, the time for her to return came and went, and she called and said she was going to go back up to Portland to deal with Ricky a little bit, and I, of course, didn't want that to happen, but she did, and predictably, they got into argument, and, she texted me saying he had been abusive, and the cops came and arrested him, and she was going to try to press charges, and my response was to immediately get her down here. But she said she might have to go to court, and she was concerned about his dog. She was very attached to his dog and didn't want to leave it alone. And I told her she could take care of the dog with phone call and arrange for people to walk it or feed it, and she needed to leave immediately. But she disagreed and said she was going to go out to the cabin with Jeremy. And Jeremy is a character that's been in our life for many years that we don't know anything about. Like, we were never privy to his last name. He wasn't a Facebook friend. There just wasn't any way for me to know about this person. But the story that Hannah told me and others is that she was being paid by him for companionship. And she swore to me that it was non-sexual companionship, that he was just a really rich person that could afford to help her, and he took a liking to her and decided to help her life. And that was really upsetting for me. It didn't make much sense. Through the years, it's been something that we fought about. But what I know from my history with this character's involvement is that he would put her up in hotel rooms all the time. I never understood that. Really, really made me angry. She could never come home in a crisis because she didn't have ID. Something had always happened to her ID. So I always had to go through the process of helping her go get a new ID so she could travel to come back. But yeah, I don't know about this Jeremy character other than, I do have text from her saying that he paid her $2,000 a month.
While Hannah told her family of her relationship with this Jeremy, that it was non-sexual in nature and that they were just friends, they never knew the details of it until just recently, when they discovered that Jeremy had been regularly paying Hannah to travel and stay with him. This is, of course, despite him being married and his wife seemingly being aware of their friendship. This relationship between Hannah and Jeremy remains something of a murky mystery for most of Hannah's family. Now, we're going to pause for just a moment to hear a word from the sponsors that make this show possible. I am definitely not a morning person. While I like the idea of waking up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I just know that I never feel that way when I first wake up. I'm usually groggy, maybe a little cranky, and it usually takes me about 2 to 3 cups of coffee until I feel like myself. But ever since I started using Magic Mind in the mornings, things have seemed a little bit more smooth. Magic Mind is a drink that you can take by itself or alongside your morning cup of joe. It's made up of all natural ingredients and contains matcha, nature's extended-release caffeine. It takes longer to release and can help reduce stress. The ingredients are full of adaptogens and mushrooms that honestly make me feel more productive and focused, as well as less stressed at the onset of the day, which, as the father of a toddler, is worth its weight in gold. If you're like me and want to be better prepared to take on the day, I totally recommend you try it out. You can get it at magicmind.com/unresolved. With the code unresolved, you can get up to 56% off your first subscription or 20% off of your one-time purchase. That's Unresolved for 56% off. It also works if you're already a subscriber. You can save on your next subscription payment. Once again, take advantage of this opportunity at magicmind.com/unresolved with the discount code unresolved to save up to 56% off of your next subscription. Like Hannah, Jeremy lived in the Portland area, but he was no stranger to the area of Trout Lake. And in the context of this story, he remains something of an enigma. As I touched on just a moment ago, he seems to have been paying Hannah for her companionship, whatever that may mean. After she left the Portland area in early October, following the most recent abusive incident from her ex-boyfriend Ricky, she seems to have gone to stay with Jeremy at his vacation home near Trout Lake, a rural area in southern Washington, just about 90 miles northeast of Portland. This area of southern Washington is very rural. While there are plenty of trees, this area is full of farmland and wide open spaces. It was here where Hannah spent her final days, in the company of Jeremy. On the afternoon of October 12th, the two decided to go swimming at a nearby river, which fed into Trout Lake. At some point, the two reportedly got separated, and in the early evening hours, Jeremy called 911.
Call started on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022 at 18 hours 47 minutes and 8 seconds.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
Well, I'm down by the natural area preserve, by the just kind of near Clarksdale, kind of outside Trout Lake, and that's the best I can tell you about where I am. There's a little entrance here.
Okay, so what's going on, sir?
I came over with a friend of mine, and she's a great swimmer. And she wanted to go swimming, so we went down to.
Sir, what is going on right now that you've called 911?
She's lost. She's not back.
Okay, so you've got a missing person. Okay.
Yeah, she's been gone. She's been gone for well over an hour, and it's getting dark here. She's only got her swimsuit. She's barefoot, just like freaking cold in the water.
Take a deep breath for me.
Okay.
And what water was she in?
The Trout Creek, I believe it's called.
Trout Creek. Okay.
Feeds into Trout Lake.
Okay, and you're there at Trout Creek Road, and you said you're down there by Clarksdale.
Yeah, by Clarksdale, just outside
Yep.
Clarksdale, I think it is, yes.
And is that where she went in at?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually was with her, went down to the creek, and I waited around for 2 hours for her to show back up again, but she never showed up.
Is she on an inner tube, or?
No, she's just has her bathing suit. She's barefoot. That's all she's got.
Bathing suit and a barefoot. Okay, do you know what color her bathing suit is?
It's black.
It's black. Okay. How old is she?
31.
31? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry, sir, my computer's just... And where did you get out at?
I came back to the car. I waited around for a while. I left the towel and the sheet we were sitting on and her cell phone there because I thought if perhaps she did actually show up that she would be able to call somebody. But I'm back at the car now. She's not there either.
Okay, so where did you leave her towel and her cell phone at?
There's a little beach down by the creek down there, and it's really hard for me to describe. I could show you. I've been there many, many times. I come here quite often.
By the bridge, or?
No, it's a natural area preserve. There's actually a little Forest Service road, at least there's a Forest Service marker. I can walk up and look, see if I can read the marker. But nobody ever thinks of it as that, using that road designation.
Okay, and you said your friend is 31?
Yes.
Hang on, Jess. So she went in, and you haven't seen her in a while. How long?
What time is it now? About 6:40, something like that.
Yep.
Probably since about 4. She's a really strong swimmer, so I wasn't really worried about her for at least an hour or so. And then she just never showed up, and I started going, God damn it, she just left me here and stranded me. But then she never came back, and it's like, I'm really freaking worried now. I can't even find it. It's so overgrown up here. I can't even find. Oh, there it is. No, the actual number on the sign is gone. The post is still there.
Okay, so sir, what's your name?
My first name is Jeremy. My last name is Whelan.
Do you live in this area, Jeremy?
I have a vacation home in Trout Lake.
Okay, but you don't live here, correct?
No, just I come up here frequently, but my home is actually in Portland.
Yeah, all right. Hang on just a second, Jeremy. Okay,
Sure.
hang on. Okay, so I've got a deputy headed your way.
Cool. That's great.
Okay, so what kind of vehicle are you in, Jeremy?
A Honda CRV.
What color is it?
Silver.
Okay.
It's kind of parked down this road. I could actually go stand by the road, so if he shows up, it'd be a little more obvious.
Well, just stay right where you're at, because we've got some cell phone coverage. I need to ask you a bunch of questions before you go back, okay? My deputy will find you, so.
Great.
And you're right there at Trout Lake Creek Road. What is that road there? There's another road right there, though, right? To the east of you?
Little
or
short
to the west
dirt road.
Of you? Yeah, to the west of you, there's a road. Up to the north and then to the west, there's a road. Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
That's yeah, I can't remember the name of that. I can't remember the name of that road.
No, I don't either, and I'm looking at my map, and that's why I can't. Okay, does she have any medical problems?
No, not really. She has some mild asthma, and that's yeah.
Does she have any mental health problems?
Yes, she does.
Okay. What kind of mental health problems does she have?
Oh, depression. She just got out of an abusive relationship with a real jerk guy, and yeah, it really devastated her. Sort of. I don't think she got out of it. She was very despondent, but she was sort of brightened up by the waters. I wasn't really too worried about her. But not coming back like this is what's freaking me out.
Right. No. That's why I've got to ask a bunch of questions. Okay.
Sure. Ask away.
Okay. Okay. What's her name?
Her first name is Hannah. Her last name is Walker.
Do you know what her date of birth is by chance?
Let's see. It's May 1st, and she's 31. So I guess that's 92 or 91. Is that right? 1991. That would make her 32.
90. Probably
31.
no, not 91.
Yeah, 91. Yeah, that would make her 31.
Yep. And you said she's in bare feet?
Yep.
About how tall is she?
She's about 5'8".
Is she thin? Is she average? Is she hefty?
A little on the thin side, yeah.
Okay. What color hair does she have?
Blonde.
Is it long or short?
Long. Well, yeah, fairly long, yeah.
Okay, is it curly or straight?
Straight.
What color are her eyes?
Blue.
Scars, marks, tattoos that you know of?
Yeah, she has some tattoos. It'd be kind of difficult for me to describe them, and she does have a few scars,
no, that's okay.
too.
Okay, tattoos, what part of her body are they on?
On her arms.
Okay. Alrighty. What's the phone number that you're calling me from? Okay, and I'm sorry, what was your name again, sir?
First name is Jeremy. That's Jeremy. Last name is
All right, Jeremy. Jeremy, what's your birthday? What is her phone number?
I can find it out if you like me. It's like she doesn't have her phone right now, so it doesn't really matter. Do you want me to look it up?
Yeah, if you would.
Hang on just a second.
You bet.
Okay, her number is
Okay. And when my deputy gets there, can you take him back to where you left the towel on the phone?
Absolutely. It's a little dark, but yes, I can do that.
Okay, great. And then, where is your car parked at?
It's parked in this little lot you can park in up here, right by sort of off the road.
Okay, so are you close to it, or?
I'm standing almost right next to the car. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Hang on just a second. All right, Jeremy. I'm going to put you on a brief hold. I'm going to be back.
Sure. No worries.
Just and see if my deputy wants me to ask you anything else. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
For now, I'll go ahead and hang up with you. My deputy's headed to where you're at.
Okay. Should I just stay by my car and go up to the road, or?
Where are you? Where you're at right now?
So I'm right by my car. My car is about maybe 50 feet from the road.
You're fine. You'll see him and you can flag him down. Okay?
Okay, great.
And then if we call you back, just answer the phone. If she shows up, give us a call back. Okay?
Okay, absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Call ended on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022 at 18 hours 59 minutes and 33 seconds.
Officers arrived at the scene a short time later. Sometime after that, Hannah's body was found, and while officials with the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office would tell Hannah's mother that they were investigating the crime thoroughly and investigating it as a homicide, there seems to have been little momentum even from the get-go. Jeremy was allowed to go home without much in the way of questioning. He nor his car were searched. While I don't think that this is overly unusual, it does point to there being no real effort at the time to thoroughly investigate the crime as a homicide, despite police officials telling Hannah's family otherwise. Regardless, it would take Hannah's relatives 3 days to receive word of Hannah's death. It wasn't until that weekend, when someone made an errant post announcing Hannah's death on social media, that her family caught wind of it. Then they contacted Klickitat County, hoping to find out if the rumors were true, only to receive a knock on their front door about an hour later when a local police officer delivered the bad news. Other than this, there would be no public mention of Hannah's death anywhere. Her death wasn't announced by Klickitat County. If you look online, or even in the local newspapers, there was no death announcement. Not even a notice that a woman's body had been found in a nearby body of water. Nothing. However, you would probably find plenty of information about the local sheriff running for re-election. More after the break. As I've mentioned, the investigation into the death of Hannah Walker would be overseen by the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office. Despite you not knowing his name, the sheriff himself, Bob Songer, might already be known by some of you. Sheriff Bob Songer is infamously known as a constitutional sheriff, a rather crackpot belief that has become the sovereign citizen of the law enforcement world. Basically, Sheriff Songer and other constitutional sheriffs believe that they are the utmost authority figure in the area that they hold office, that they get to pick and choose which laws to enforce, even believing that their authority trumps state and federal authority. In this rather rural area of Washington state, Sheriff Songer essentially holds all of the power, or at least he thinks so. Don't take my word for it, he campaigns on it. If you Google Sheriff Bob Songer, you'll find some news story talking about it. At the time of Hannah's death in October of 2022, Bob Songer was running for re-election. He won just a couple of weeks later, by a rather slim margin, but he won regardless. And in the weeks after Hannah's death, which his investigators would quickly label as an inactive case, her family would try and find out information, but were met with a metaphorical brick wall and an ongoing cavalcade of investigative shakeups.
So I was getting nowhere because, so the detective that was assigned, the full-time detective, right, it told me he was ordering the forensics on the phone, doing all this stuff. He told me that I would hear from him on Thursday, without fail, that he might not always have information or new information, but that he would be the guy that's keeping me connected. He called the next Thursday, as agreed, to tell me that he had been transferred to patrol. Because they hadn't found any smoking gun, so to speak, at the crime scene, they were going to move the case to inactive and wait for the toxicology report to come back. And I was like, what do you mean you're moving it to inactive? How are you going to find out what happened if you don't investigate? Makes no sense. Yeah. So he told me he had been moved to patrol because they were understaffed. So I called the sheriff's office and spoke to the undersheriff, Carmen, and I complained. And I said, hey, I need to know who's handling this investigation and if it's active or if it's inactive. It's active. We're just really understaffed, and you need to just kind of be patient with us. We also all have the flu. I say, okay, I get that. That's, understandable. But isn't there protocols in place? If you need help, you can get state resources or federal resources, you can't just not investigate because you're busy or understaffed, right? And she said, what you can do is you can call the county commission, increase our budget. That's what she said to me. I was like, are you kidding me? That's what you're saying to me right now?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just the whole time. It's been nothing but that kind of attitude. Mm-hmm. People seeming very annoyed if I'm, calling to find out, why they haven't answered my question. And they're valid questions. Okay. An example is Hannah and I were texting as she was on her way to the river. She texted me, I'm on my way to the river. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the 911 call, when the lady asked Jeremy for Hannah's phone number, Jeremy says, well, she doesn't have it with her right now, so it doesn't matter. And the lady's like, well, can you give it to me anyway? And he's like, okay, you want me to look it up for you? I'll look it up or whatever. So first off, okay. So anyways, he gives him a different phone number. So my question, which is very valid, is which phone did you find at the scene? Is it the one that I pay for, that I was texting her on, or is it the one that is tied to the number that Jeremy gave you? Very valid question, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Needs to be answered. Sheriff Songer, when I posed the question to him, he says this to me. Well, we think that both numbers are tied to that phone. So I call my phone company, and that's not how it works. Yeah. Each phone number is tied to a SIM card. So, you can forward a number to your cell phone or something, but a cell phone can't have two numbers.
Yeah, the only way that would work is if it was like a Google Voice number or like a digital phone number, but if it was tied to a SIM card, then yeah, those are two different cell phones.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know these things. That's why I'm stuck on it. I'm like, well, this is a piece of something that doesn't make any sense. I need to know.
With the police seeming to take no interest in pursuing Hannah's death as anything other than an accidental drowning, her family would begin to compile information about the life Hannah had been living in the weeks before her death, including information about the people she had surrounded herself with, including Jeremy and her ex-boyfriend, Ricky.
The family, we took all of this in and met with the sheriff in person on the 26th of October. And the reason I set up that meeting was because of the delay in notification and telling me I couldn't ID her until after autopsy, which I challenged. I was like, no, I need to see her before the autopsy. I just want to make sure it's her. And the coroner told me, well, I would have to escalate that up to the head coroner. It's not usually how it happens. And I said, yes, well, please do so. I'm going to talk to my kids and make sure they agree with me. But if you would, please escalate it. I do want to see her body before the autopsy. But he never responded. And the next communication I got was a voicemail, and he's like, yeah, I'm on the road taking Hannah to the medical examiners. You're going to have to call them, to make arrangements to pick up her body. It was just so insensitive and so, like, there was no victim advocate there for our family. There was nobody, like, okay, we were given a number to call the detective, the guy that was at the scene that responded, Tony Warren. I called to talk to Tony Warren, and I was told he was on vacation. And I'm like, well, wait, you assigned a homicide to somebody on vacation? Who's in charge of the case when he's gone? Well, nobody, they say. So I'm furious. So I called the county commissioner because, well, first I did the loop through like the governor's office and the attorney general's office and trying to figure out who oversees this county and all that's going on because it makes no sense. And I was told that they're elected officials, and so the electorate is who oversees them. And I'm like, well, okay, but I'm trying to figure out why I wasn't notified about death. Oh, well, that's the coroner's. Yeah, I don't know, you might try the commissioner. So I called the commissioner, and he gave me Sheriff Songer's cell phone directly, his cell phone number. And so I called Songer, and he said, can you come and meet me in my office tomorrow? So we drove out to Goldendale, and we stayed up that night writing out all our questions and concerns. And we delivered them to him, and he read the whole thing. We sat there and watched him mouth each word. We watched his heart rate. It started to go faster at certain parts of what he was reading. And when he finished, he said, it's very suspicious. And he said, if the autopsy comes back showing any sort of foul play, these are, high on our list. These are suspects high on our list. And then right after that, like the next day, maybe the day after, I got a call from another detective saying that he had been assigned the case and that he's the full-time detective. And his name is Tim Neer. And that he said, this is really unusual. I am considering it a homicide. People don't just go to the river with a friend to commit suicide. And he said he was going to get to the bottom of it. He told me about forensic tools that he was going to order. He said he needed to order some phone work, that they were going to be able to tell not only details about her phone and where it had been, but other phones in the vicinity, et cetera, et cetera. He explained it quite well.
Mm-hmm.
But since we've learned that they never did any of that. They told me that it was a high priority, that they were doing a thorough investigation. Sheriff Songer told me I needed to trust him. Yeah. That one gets me, kind of upset. Yeah. He told me, I'm asking you to trust that we're doing a thorough investigation. And I said, well, sir, it doesn't appear that way. I've asked these questions that are going unanswered. They're valid questions. You haven't responded to me. I'm doubting it. Yeah. And then I blundered one day by saying, telling the sheriff that, hey, I don't think you're doing a good investigation. I'm finding lots of ways that you're not. And I'll give you an example. I received a call from the coroner, or a text, saying that they had recovered some of Hannah's personal belongings from the residence, and what did I want done with them. And my response was to take them to the sheriff's office, where I would arrange for them to be picked up. But then when I called to do that, there were no belongings there. Nobody knew anything about it. So I addressed the sheriff directly and said, what about her belongings? The coroner told me, blah, blah, blah. What about them? And he said, I will look into that for you. I give you my word. I will find out about the belongings. I said, great. I waited a respectful 2 weeks, like you do in business, to follow up. And I followed up and I said, I haven't heard from you. You told me you were going to find out about these belongings. It's been kind of a long time, getting mad about it. I didn't say that, actually. But anyway, so he left me a voicemail and he said, oh, yeah, about the belongings. The coroner did bring them to the office. We have them here. And what we're showing is a black swimsuit and a cell phone. So they're here. Just wanted you to know I did follow up on that. And I was shocked because I wasn't talking about the belongings at the crime scene that were supposedly in the evidence locker or at the lab. I'm talking about the belongings that the coroner mentioned getting from the residence. So he wasn't even on the same page. He's not even caring enough about what my concern was to get it right. And when I had that conversation with him, I told him, I said, you know what? It doesn't look like you're doing a thorough investigation at all, sir. I said, it kind of seems like maybe somebody was too busy with their election to really care about doing the work. And he got really mad at me. And he said, Ms. Walker, I've been nice to you up until now because you're a grieving mother, but you have taken it too far. Now you are interfering in this investigation. That's what he said to me. And I said, Sir, I'm not interfering in the investigation. I'm trying to assure one was completed. And then he refused to communicate with me after that. In January, I got a letter, and it had the crime lab information sheet. It had the initial coroner report. It had the initial deputy report. And it had the search and rescue personnel log, that I had asked for. I had asked for a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it said, the letter says to me that due to backlog at the labs, the two labs, the crime lab and the toxicology lab, they had not they had not received any results, and they don't expect to receive it for another 6 to 8 months. Mm-hmm. They wrote that letter to me in January. In about April is when I got attorneys involved, and they started asking, re-asking, because I had already requested all public records. But they started requesting them again and came to the conclusion that after receiving the final, so they received from Klickitat an assertion that we had received all records pertaining to the case and that nothing was being withheld. That's important because they technically can withhold information, withhold evidence, mm-hmm. but they have to tell you that they are. Yeah. So we know that they're not, because my attorneys brought that to light and had them assert that they're not withholding anything. Okay, so they have everything. We have everything, and they're not holding anything back. When we go through everything, what we realize is they had all the information in December that showed DNA under both sets of fingernails, semen in the vaginal canal, boot prints photographed at the scene, even though they didn't recover any shoes, and he on the 911 call says she's barefoot. Okay? So they knew all of that in December, still chose not to investigate, even though the crime lab report itself says, please submit DNA reference samples for positive confirmation. But they never did that part. They never did anything. In fact, what they did is they lied to me in January and told me it was going to be, I don't know, let's say, put it after the date that the samples can be destroyed. Okay, so we'll date it that, and we'll send it to her, and we're going to tell her that's when, we think we're going to have everything back. And then right around that time is when the attorneys got their final, this is everything we have, we're all done, the case is done. So they just lied to me and didn't investigate. They told me that things were backlogged at the lab. They had it on their desk, showing foul play, probable foul play. That needs an explanation.
In the months that have since passed, Sheriff Bob Songer and other members of the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office have refused to say much about Hannah's case. While he has refused to speak privately with Hannah's relatives, in public he's assumed the stance of someone eager to defend himself. In fact, in his most recent statements to the press, he's claimed that the Walker family hiring lawyers clearly means that they plan to sue him and his department, so he's unwilling to talk about the case, while at the same time asserting that it was an accidental drowning and is currently inactive. Kind of the law enforcement equivalent of having his cake and eating it too. While Hannah's family remained frustrated with how the investigation took place and how law enforcement communicated their progress, or lack of it, with them, they're also increasingly frustrated with how the local authorities did not publish any information in the case until they were pressed on it.
Well, what's interesting is the local newspapers in that area that serve the electorate, that is the oversight committee, haven't published anything about it. They didn't publish anything about her death when it happened, even though they regularly publish incident reports before and after Hannah's death. I can show you both. Just general police incident report like you would expect to find in the newspaper when you're trying to find out what is going on in the community. But they didn't publish anything about it at all. Nothing. Nothing was published about it until KGW broke the story when we finally decided, okay, you know what? We've had enough. Now we're going to go to the press. Now we're going to get attorneys because you can't do this to people. You know, first of all, it's bad enough that they just neglected their basic job description, basic crime investigation 101 that you can Google search and look at the first 10 steps you have to do. You know, there's been nothing. So we gave them the press release. We gave the local papers the press release over a month ago to the Goldendale Sentinel anyway. The attorney sent the first press release to them. They haven't published anything. In fact, we got a response from them basically saying, it's an uncorroborated story. You know, we would have to have a public statement by somebody to answer to it. And since we can't get that, then we can't publish the story. Which makes no sense because there are a lot of facts to the story.
And you would think the independent media would go out and try and find the information instead of just...
You would hope so, especially if you're being told that the electorate is the governing and oversight committee for, you know, really significant, crucial roles in the community, like law enforcement. And I just wonder now, like this county, where are the people getting their information? You know, when I finally did reach a victim advocate in the county, when I reached out, she hadn't heard about it at all. And she was so shocked. She goes, why didn't I hear about this? It is such a small community. And I work at the courthouse with these people every day. And it's my role to know about this stuff. Why didn't I know about this? Okay. A lot of people didn't know about it. Our email is filling up with people that are like, I have teenage daughters that go down there and swim all the time. You know, why didn't I know about this? Like somebody's just going to decide that they know what happened without any investigation, without any search of the evidence. Like they didn't search his car. They didn't check him for scratches. He had said nothing about her being inebriated or having trouble on the trail or even about drinking. How far away is the cabin from the place? And then they walked a trail. Then they sat for a while. Like, it doesn't make sense. You didn't show me anything that shows that they were drinking there. You didn't show me anything that shows that he didn't have scratches, that his car didn't have booze or whatever. You know, there was just nothing done. They let him go home because he was cold. He was wearing Hannah's hoodie. He had left the towel and the phone on the beach in case she comes back. Not when she comes back, but in case she comes back so she could call somebody. And he also raised concern on the 911 call about her possibly being cold because she's naked and barefoot. But he wears her hoodie because he's cold? I don't know. Anyway, just so many problems with the way the whole thing has gone. We're just at a complete loss. We are really hoping that the FBI decides to investigate, if not to find out what happened to Hannah, but almost as importantly to find out why they're conducting law enforcement this way there. And, there's other people coming out in emails to us saying that they know of other incidents. It's not an isolated case of a mishandled or neglected investigation, apparently.
Despite struggling over the past year to not only grieve Hannah's loss, but also fight for answers in her confusing case, Hannah's family remains resilient. I'm sorry. Like I said at the beginning, I know it's not easy talking about this, but then when you have the equal parts, the sadness for the grieving, and then you have all this other anger and frustration, I know it can create something that's just overwhelming and overpowering. And that's why I'm just, every time I talk to a family member like yourself, I'm just, I'm amazed, I'm inspired. I'm just honestly just amazed by how you can coherently, make these arguments and not just explode in a ball of anger. It really says a lot about you and, your family.
It's been so hard to, frankly, have to show up, right? Mm-hmm. It would be a lot easier for us if we could really just go away and grieve, right? It would be a lot easier to look the other way and say, oh no, that county system isn't defunct. No, that sheriff isn't acting with impunity and just deciding the fates of people. No, you can't look away from stuff like that. If somebody is going to bring the battle right to your home, then yeah, okay, I'll grieve later. I'll grieve later. You don't even know. You picked the wrong family here, I've got stamina, I've got resilience for all of us. We're going to find out what happened eventually. It doesn't feel right. Nothing about it feels right. And I'm not going to just go away.
This is undoubtedly a story that will be covered more in depth on this podcast in the near future, so I don't think that this is the last you'll hear of it from me or Hannah's mother. If you would like to learn more about this case or learn how to support the family in their effort to keep Hannah's story alive, I would encourage you to visit their website, hannahrosewalker.com. There, they've posted a lot of information about the case, about Hannah, including several pictures of Hannah throughout her life, so you could see random snapshots of her. I'll include a link to their website in the show notes. I encourage you to check it out. While Hannah's case file remains technically inactive with the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office, I believe that her story remains unresolved.